Alright, well this is Aaron Squire coming to you guys again this week. We've got episode 63 coming at you. Deck building with the Squire with the Orcs? The Orcs? We're going to do some PVE Orc deck building today, that's what that means. And I see a couple, I see somebody's in the channel. We got Theraval here, 7, hello, how you doing? So tonight we're going to be talking about the 5 Shards tournament. It closed out, we've got the first 5 Shards tournament all over. Somebody's got a plane ticket to go back to Gen Con, so hopefully they'll see me out there. Of course, I'm going to announce that tonight as well. I will be going to Gen Con this year. I've worked that out with work and with the wife. We've also got some regular Hex news, and that's pretty much it tonight. So let's kick things off by talking about what we've been doing. Just a little steal of a segment there. I'm still playing Neuron Ball, which is kind of like a web-based, I guess, management game where you manage a soccer team of robots. It's kind of fun. I've been doing that as well as Hex. I've been grinding my gold up, and I've been watching a series called Hunter x Hunter anime series on Netflix that has taken over my life. Yeah, it's like crack. I have to put myself on some sort of limit because it puts you on so many cliffhangers. It's like, oh, well, I just want to watch the next episode. What you been doing?
Well, I have been watching anime. I run an anime convention in the Pittsburgh area, like I said, so I try to keep up with a bunch of stuff. So I'm watching 3 series right now, that 2 of which I won't admit to because they're just not in my normal genre. But I'm also watching what's that new one? I can't.
What's it about?
If I think of the name, I'll let you know. But it's
okay.
Crazy Ridiculous. It's by the guy who did Eureka 7. So
okay.
It's very good anime.
I liked Eureka 7. A lot of people hated it.
Oh, I loved it. I was a big fan.
We're kind of becoming an anime podcast all of a sudden, or
right.
vodcast. Right.
Yeah, other than that, playing, I haven't done a whole lot of work, I guess. Is that a thing? I feel like that's where my free time goes.
Good? Maybe?
Sure.
Okay. As long as you can pay the bills. I mean, obviously you're here, so obviously you're paying the bills. That's important. So let's jump right into let's transition over to the 5 Shards tournament last week. So yeah, I think there's someone we both know that was actually in this tournament. So congratulations on making it to the top 16, not just being in the tournament. You were like the sleeper that just kind of came into the, what do you call it, the basketball tournament, the brackets. It's like you came in a sleeper, and it's like nobody expected Golden Saucer Guy to make it, but he totally made it in the top 16. And not only that, let's scroll down here. It looks like, what's this? You made it into the top 4.
Right? Yeah.
What? I mean, that just goes to show you.
For the big upset, like round 1, game 1. The first person I play is first place Kind Mime. And 2-0'd him.
Expected to make it into the top 16. Very highly favored to make it in. Kind Mime.
Yeah, a lot of people picked him for that little fantasy thing. Then turned around and beat the next squad mate I had in there. 2-1 to him, I believe. I can't remember off the top of my head. Got to the 3rd guy, 2-0'd him. And the 4th guy was the one with the worst record. He's the only one I hadn't played yet, and he dropped. So
you basically owned the whole pod.
Yeah, so I beat the pod in an hour and a half. Not even. Hour and...
I remember you texting me, and I had some things going on that weekend, so I didn't watch it. I should go back and watch some of the footage. But, I mean, that's a really good day, and that just goes to show you sometimes, there are just times when everything is just lining up for you, all the stars align, and it's just a really good day for you. And that sounds like what happened. I mean, you were obviously running a very favored deck, a deck that a lot of people have some hatred for, and we did some testing the night before, talked about a couple things. Just kind of walk me through, we did talk about possibly getting something with toughness 3 or 4 in your deck, but you decided not to put any of those cards in there. How did you feel about that decision?
So, I guess just to kind of jump through what I played through, when I hit the top 16, I ended up coming across a little bit of blood. We came into Diamond Sapphire Control, and my goal was, knowing that I'm going to come in control, is just to kind of get that aggro, get bodies on board, get every inch of damage I could get in early, knowing that if I get down to a match where they're bouncing, they're trolling, if I can just ping with just 1 or 2 damage here or there, I can inch you down to the point where I can, maybe Gore Feast in with 1 or 2 troops, or just kind of like get a couple burns on you and pull out a win. But what I didn't expect is to see no early aggression from my opponents. So by the time my opponents were getting to the point where they were stabilizing, I already had them down to the 10-12 range. So
right.
That was great. As far as the 3 defense troops, yeah, we put them in the back end there, expecting to see,
Right, we got the 3 Eldritch Dreamers, the Cerulean Mentalists. Those help out. Again, we're trying to avoid Heat Wave by putting those in there.
Exactly.
That was the big counter to this deck, we felt.
There was no sign of Heat Wave at all. None.
That's crazy.
When it came down to it, I wish I ran Heat Wave. In the match I lost to the top first place player, he got me on just throwing out all these bodies out there, and like we can check out the deck on here, but he was running.
Yeah. I mean, the first place player was basically running all aggro, very low shard count. He's basically running 1 and 2 drops with these, basically the Bertram Crag Raven, I guess, or dwarf aggro deck that is similar to the PVE deck we built last week.
Yeah, exactly. And I felt good against that match, but I would have been so much better if I would have had, the ability to like Wildfire and just clean board. I mean, I actually the thing that most people have a problem with is Tectonic Mega Hulk. I had no problem with that. I bounce him back to hand. You have to spend the time to get him going again.
Right.
No issues there. Construction Foreman, not a real big problem. Hornet Bot's not a real big problem. But Terrabot's a little bit of an issue,
a bit of a problem.
Aggro them if the board's clear.
Right. I mean, this feels like a matchup where like he takes over the early game with like an early Machinist with like a Hex Geode or something, right. maybe a Machinist on a Electroid or something like that. But then, like, hopefully, as long as you get to play your, what is it called? As long as you get to play Falconeer, you're okay. As long as he doesn't bounce it or kill it,
right?
But he does have answers for that.
Yeah.
So. I mean, he's got bounce, he's got direct damage.
Too. Like I almost punted the game 2. I made a ton of misplays in game 3. I was feeling rushed, and it wasn't that great. But previous matches, I was really comfortable. Like I would get moving and be stable early, and come into turn 5 knowing I have board control. And I'm looking at like they're trying to get their marble online, and I'm, whacking them in the face for 8 damage.
Your
so
turn 4, turn 5 is the critical turn for you.
Right. And turn 4 and 5 were huge. If I got some troops underground, they would assume that I don't have a lot going on, and you drop it. You drop the Hypnoscientist. You take away one of their 1 or 2 only good blockers. Like they focus on having that one big troop. They're going to put out that big totem and pump that totem up and think they have you with that totem. And you turn around, you make it so it can't block, and you walk in for 10 damage, and they didn't see it coming.
It looks like you raised your totals on your Hypnoscientist. You had 3 the night before, I believe, and then you raised it to 4?
Yeah, I ran a couple games, and I was getting a little irritated, because every game I wanted a Hypnoscientist, and he really came through almost, not an MVP, but it was like, I needed that surprise, you don't have a blocker. Yeah. Especially if your goal is to get as many guys out as possible, you want that Gore Feast guy to come through. You want a Royal Falconer. You want one of those, an extra one, him to get through. You want you're looking for maybe that extra 2 damage out of your Buccaneer, and wiping out a blocker is somewhere between 2 to 5 damage added on. Right. And that's enough to tip the board in your direction.
Yeah, and with a Gore Feast, I mean, you put some, like, with a Hypnoscientist plus a Gore Feast, and if they only have 1 blocker, I mean, that's a lot of damage. It's 6 plus 7, that's 13 damage.
Interestingly enough,
it's pretty
Gore
ridiculous.
Feast came up not as much as I would have wanted. I won most games without Gore Feast at all.
Right.
I won because I was playing, a troop on 2, whether it's underground or coming out. You have Stormclouds coming out. You have, you're looking at like Stormcloud Buccaneer into Royal Falconer, or turn 2 Hypnoscientist, Buccaneer, or some other, Mirror Knight or something, and then a Buccaneer. Then Hypnoscientist comes out, stops a blocker. You have 3 troops swing in. All but the Mirror Knight get you card draw, so if they kill him, you get card advantage. So
I mean, it's all the typical stuff we've already, we've seen a lot of this stuff before. Yeah, I mean,
did get that Rust the Reese crawler out once.
Yeah.
I only ran one. That was kind of like my tip the board. That's like the game.
Yeah, it's a late game.
Yeah, like I'm stuck in turns 8, 9, 10. I'm not going anywhere. I've built up a board. I'm surviving. I need.
And they're afraid of. They're only pinging you because they're afraid of a Gore Feast top deck at any point in time. And if they push too hard, then you can just push back anyways.
The surprise card, Fisher Smith. That card won me games. That was crazy.
Yeah, because you have so much stuff underground. They're like, well, is it Reese or is it Subterranean Spy?
Don't see it first game. It's reserved, so they never see it early.
Is it Hypnoscientist? What is it?
Or if I lost a game 2, I definitely put it in game 3.
Right.
I'll take out some of the Subterranean Spy and go for those, so I'm not getting too many troops underground. I didn't like getting a handful of nothing but underground troops. So I pull out the card that lets me see their hand because I already know what they're playing. I don't need to know. I might not necessarily need to know what's in hand. I go, well, these are the kind of cards I'm going to see. Let's get the Fisher Smith in there instead. See if I can't pop a couple. And sure enough, like every time, they would take the bait, and then from that point on, if I have the first turn of troops underground, I don't get attacked.
Right.
And I like that more than just getting the kill because usually I have a Mirror Knight out, so it's like a free 2/1 blocker that dies. I get a card. It's for a low cost. It really no problem for me at all.
Right. A couple other things real quick. I noticed you pumped up your burns from 2 to 3, and you took your time ripples down to 2. Typically, we see people running 3, and I understand that. I prefer to kill things and bounce them anyways, and it feels like in the format, like that's pretty good call to make. The other interesting one on here is Army of the Arcane Cinder. I'm guessing that didn't come up that much for you.
No, I put it in one game, and I never got it. There was a game against...
Army of the Arcane Cinder feels like it's there for like the wild matchup, but like more than that, there's better cards.
There's a game against a control deck, and I wasn't getting the kill early. I needed to have a long game plan.
I could see that.
And my long game plan was Mirror Knight and Army of the Arcane Cinder.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
So.
Okay. Let's talk about some of the other decks real quick and move through these. We've got another Bertram Cragraven, Stormcloud. This is similar to the deck we just saw being played in the first place deck. So it was basically 2 of these dwarf aggro decks. It's interesting because like Coma's is basically a lot slower than Black Rogers, and Black Rogers should have like less consistency because he's only running 20 shards, and technically he has 21 if you count the Hex Geode. I think it's very interesting to see that like how the really fast aggro is defeating the not as fast but still pretty good aggro. I guess this is more like Mono Sapphire actually. Hold on.
Right.
That's actually more like Mono Saph. So
most of the decks I saw this weekend were decks that didn't get going until like turns 3 and 4. I mean, his deck got by turn 3, 4, 5, the game is clearly in hand, and both Coma and him and me, I guess in some senses, we want to own the game on 4 and 5. We don't want to get going on turns 4 and 5.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like with Coma, he has to just hope that he gets to a place where he can play a Mastery Time or a Grolk, and or that Reese enters the board in a board state where he's above 10 health, and he can stabilize from there. But it's not a good spot to be.
Deck more, even though I know when I saw his deck after I got knocked out, whatever, I was looking at his list and like, man, that's pretty solid. I would have enjoyed playing that. It would have been fun.
Yeah, it seems pretty good. Moving on, we got Havoc, another favorite here. Looks like he's actually playing a wild deck where he's running a wild Sapphire deck. He's got Oracle songs in there. That's kind of interesting, I guess. Archmage Renlock is interesting, I guess. And he's running the Azure Fate, just a one of. And this is what I've been saying the whole time with a lot of these cards that buff other cards, is you have to treat them as buffs. And buffs are not cards you typically want to see a lot of in your hand. So it's like Azure Fate, card draw plus flight. Okay, interesting, because that's going to buff a lot of these other cards. But if you draw a bunch of them, it's not going to do very much for you. I'm surprised he didn't go with Azure Fate with the Spell Shield. Maybe one Azure Fate card draw flight and the other one like Spell Shield maybe, because I felt like that was also very strong. But you know, I think this is.
It seems like he wanted those mastery at times. He wanted that one menacing Grolk. He wanted Renlock. So, and that's the way to get it. I love the one Rhino. You know, I like that. I played him. I lost in the previous last event that I played against him in. I lost. I went Rhinos. He went Spell Shield. or we both went Spell Shield. I went all Rhinos. He went all Flight, and it was really close, brutal games. It came down to 1 or 2 attack rounds. So
right,
it was really
you're saying the last tournament before you were playing this list you're playing right now, which is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the previous tournament we were
right. Okay.
Maybe the one before that. I was running the Wild Sapphire deck with 4 Azure Fates with the Rhino.
Yeah.
Gem.
It's interesting he's running 4 Sight of the Sun too, because that card is unique, and so if you play 2 of it, it dies. I mean, I understand it's a 1/2 that's very difficult to deal with, and he's trying to combo where he plays Sight of the Sun, and then he plays Mastery Time, and then uses Sight of the Sun, so he still gets his resources for the turn, which is pretty cool. I mean, it seems pretty cool, but I don't know. It feels like when I played this deck, maybe it's better this way, but when I try to play one of his other incarnations of it, I didn't especially like the curve on it and some of the other issues with it I had.
I didn't play this deck, but I mean, my focus there would be probably like wipe out those Sight of the Sun. And if I have any multiples, I mean, you might be like, I'm throwing a burn right at your Sight of the Sun, like every time.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want you gathering that. So having 4 of it, that's not bad, I don't think.
Moving on, we got Santosh with another, looks like he's running Bertram for the early. It looks like most people are running Bertram just to have like the early blockers to deal with the exact deck that you were just playing. The what do you call this? I always forget the name of it. Gore Feast deck.
Yeah.
But he's running a Diamond Sapphire deck where it's kind of like that lean back Angel deck with the Reese Angel deck, basically, with a lot of counter magic, and it just kind of waits until it has a lockdown with Soul Marble, Living Totem, Reese, or Angel, and then a lot of counter magic backup. I mean, that's pretty normal, I guess. It's interesting he's running 4 Reese, I guess. I don't especially like doing that because, again, I don't like to see lots of unique cards in my hand, in my opening hand. Especially that one, because it just feels like it's a 6-turn card. You know, eventually he does take over the game, but yeah, I mean, any insight on that guy?
No,
on his deck? I mean, it's still a solid deck.
I basically played
Citadel's interesting.
I played against that deck in some sense, like variations of it, all afternoon. I like, it was either that or it was like Mono Blood or Blood Sapphire.
Right.
I mean, it was. So
if he angels you early, like if he gets the lucky angel, then he gets the lucky angel and he basically wins, type of thing. That's kind of what I felt like, unless you can bounce it. And you've got 6 bounces, so.
Right. Yeah, I got top deck with an angel at least twice, and both times, you know, there was a Buccaneer within a turn or 2.
Yeah, well, that works.
Yeah, well, that's another reason I brought Time Ripple down to 2, because with Buccaneer and those 2 I'm running 6. So am I confident to get 1 within 4 turns, 5 turns, 6 turns? Yeah.
Right.
I just need 1. I don't need to bounce too much. So
either that, or hopefully you get enough board position that you can Gore Feast and win anyways. But
right, and again,
still a very solid deck.
Oh, your angel can't block now. Great.
Yeah.
For 10, you're gonna hit me for 4. I'll hit you for 10.
Right. Or 13. With if you're talking about Gore Feast, yeah, 13. Right. Funny Fat Guy, another great player. I've lost to many times in these tournaments. He's again running Bertram to help out with the Gore Feast matchup. Like we haven't seen the Gore Feast matchup except for your deck. It's very interesting that's the way things kind of shook out here.
Yeah.
But he's got, looks like Mono Sapphire again with the Sapper's Charge. And yeah, I mean, it's very similar to what we've already seen. Stormclouds, Verdict, sure. I mean, pretty typical build. Nothing's overly interesting except for maybe Shagoth at the very bottom. I'm not sure how often he would have cited that in, because that just gives him kind of like another counter that gets shuffled in. And the card draw in his deck is, yeah, I guess it's there to help out with that.
Yeah, I almost lost the game because the guy, he played Stormclouds on me and then started dropping Crackling Vortexes, and there was a freaking sky full of clouds, and if I didn't have the bigger troops out, I would have been in some trouble.
Next we got Damien with Wyatt the Sapper type of deck. He's running, yeah, it looks like he is also running a Mono Sapphire deck, but he decided to go with Wyatt. Do you think that running the Wyatt over Bertram is one of the reasons why he maybe didn't do so well? Because, again, the early game is really bad against not only you, but against the other dwarf player, the winner Black Roger.
Maybe. I mean, if he had the matchups that I had, he was probably better off because I didn't see a ton of. I didn't get a lot of aggression until I ran into Black Roger. So, I mean, that was probably the better choice in this event, just because people played what they knew, which just seems like a lot of.
I mean, he has an early blocker with Ancestors Chosen, but I mean that only trades with 1/1s, and Black Roger's got like 3/3s that are attacking most of the time on turn 3 at least.
Right.
So, I mean, it seems like the Ancestors Chosen is again another one of those cards that's kind of like a buff that hopefully pays off when you draw those 2/2s that draw you cards that can't trip through your deck. So I don't really. I love Ancestors Chosen, don't get me wrong, but it feels like in that matchup that it doesn't really do enough for you if you're trying to block with it. It does work against your Gore Feast deck because most of your stuff has a 1 point back end, so it helps. But I mean, it doesn't probably do enough. Finally, the last deck, or actually, so we got 16 decks to look at. Holy cow! Let's look at. We'll look at the top 8, and we'll look at the other 8 next week. Is what we'll do. So we got some news items to hit on, but he's running Rutherford Banks, and the only ones in the entire tournament. They talked about this. I did watch a little bit of that when they were talking about it, but he's running the Angel Reese Sapphire Diamond deck, where it just runs the best of both worlds and a bunch of counter magic, soul marble, and all the fun things that are in there. He's got the 2 repel, which is very helpful against high aggro decks like the Gore Feast that you ran, and the tournament winner with the dwarf aggro. I guess he's got solitary. He said solidary exile, but it's solitary exile.
Judge.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's very interesting. I guess the most interesting thing that I saw when he was playing this deck is how often he would get to the late game. Someone would have taken care of Reese by killing it or something, like murder it, and then he'll be like Rutherford Banks and bring it back. And there was actually a little bit of a debate in the channel as to whether the Reese would have counted as because basically if you just straight up play Reese, you just get defensive 1/1 robots. But if you bury him and then bring him back into play, you get random robots, which is much better. And I think when you pull him from the graveyard, you get random robots still because he still has the ability attached to him because it's permanent. I believe that's how it works.
That is how it worked. Yeah, he was he was the second one I played in the top 16, and it came down to, like I had mentioned before, he plays Soul Marble, and he's kind of banking on getting a Soul Marble with a Buccaneer or a.
Well, he needs repel. I'd say if anything, yeah, he's got 2 repel in the reserves. I mean, he's a game 2 is much better for him, getting those extra repels in there.
So he actually had me sweating a couple times, but he was a good opponent, and he definitely knew his deck really well. He had his timing well, but he just had a real tough time dealing with my aggression. I mean, he threw a counter magic out, but there's nothing in my deck that stands out other than Gore Feast.
Maybe Reese.
Card.
But yeah.
So it's like, what do you counter? I mean, do you clean out my burns? Do you?
Yeah.
What do you do?
I have to question the 4X reversion. I feel like he could have done something better than that there.
Right.
That seems like a lot.
He did counter magic a Hypnoscientist at one point, but that doesn't matter because I only ever buried anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, very few times would you just hard cast a Hypnoscientist.
Exactly. So yeah, his was probably one of the harder games I played. He was definitely one of the better opponents. So props to him. It was really tough, but beating him put me in the top 4, which is what it is.
Okay, so I guess I'd just like to say congratulations, Black Roger, on winning the very first 5 Shards tournament. It was a tough road. It's been a long season. It's well earned. I hope to see you out at Gen Con when I'm out there. Make sure to come up and say hello to me, and I will shake your hand and congratulate you on winning the tournament there in person. And and we'll move on to some of the news items for Hex. So first things first, we got the Stress Tournament rescheduled. So if you're looking forward to doing the Stress Tournament tomorrow, unfortunately it's not going to happen, so don't show up on the test server tomorrow. It looks like they're rescheduling it to a later time, probably because of, I don't know, something programming or something. They don't really say why, they just say it's been rescheduled. Pretty simple there, not too much else to say. Moving on, we've got, if you want to get on the mailing list, You can sign up by going to the Hex website, and they've got this one that says sign up for email communications from Hex. I'm pretty sure, and Golden Saucer Guy agrees with me, that this is probably the same stuff if you're a Kickstarter backer that you're already getting. So you might not want to sign up for it if you are already a Kickstarter backer. But for everyone else that's just discovering Hex, make sure if you want to get your email stuff in there, go ahead and sign up here. Although they may already have your email. I think they're just trying to save on, you know, because like they could kick it out, because I think you need to have an email even if you have an account anyways. So, but if you want to sign up and you aren't even, you know, you just want to get the news on Hex and you haven't even committed to getting an account yet, you could always get on the email thing here. So, Golden Saucer got anything to throw on there?
I think most people are already getting it that are playing, because you sign up, you get it. But if you're not a part of it, I think they're basically saying, hey, you want emails on the Hex? We'll let you know where it's at or what's going on. You know, so,
I mean, there's still people that are waiting. They're like, it's still in beta, so I'm not going to touch it. It's still beta. I got other things to do, and I understand that. That's fine. Moving on, becoming a game designer. This is Ben Stoll talking about how to become a game designer. I kind of glanced through it, so I'm going to give it a better read a little later after the show, but it's a great article for aspiring game designers like myself. If you didn't know, I am trying to develop my own video game right now, which I'm hoping to release sometime in 2016. But I think one of the most important things you can pull out of this whole article is, what is a game? And the way he describes it down here, he says a game is an interactive experience with defined parameters, rules that can be received by one or more people on an aesthetic, emotional, and psychological level. And if you read through the article and the way he talks, I can see a lot of the way I've spent a lot more time not talking to Ben Stoll, but talking to one of the other developers, and they have like the same thing. They talk about the same stuff. They talk about, we want this to be an emotional game. We want there to be stress in the game. We want you to, you know, have moments of like cringe where it's like, oh, I just need this one shard to do this, or maybe if I just top deck this card, I can deal with this situation. So when that happens, you know, it's Dan Clark. Yeah, when I talk to Dan Clark, that's something that's very, very important to him. And even when I talked to Chris Woods, that was another thing that, like, when I asked them about the way that they did the system, the resource system in the game, and why they did it the way they did, they said, well, this creates tension, and they want that to be a part of the game. So, very interesting read. Anything to add on there? Anything you thinking about? Nope. No,
good on you for trying to make a game. I mean, it's tough work. Most of my friends went for either, you know, some form of game design, animation, and, you know, it's tough to get jobs out there, but people who want to just make the game to make that experience for other players, that's great.
Next we've got some new cards. Basically, we've got the Vampire King now has a princess, apparently. I'm not sure if it's his daughter or if there's any lore there. The flavor text is, the wine is sweet, my kiss is even sweeter. So her cost is 3. She's got 2 blood threshold that you need to play her. She's got flight and life drain. She's a 2/3 troop. When this deals damage to an opposing champion, reveal a random card from their hand. If the revealed card is in action, transform it into a vampiric kiss and put it into your hand. If this is your opening hand, you can play Vampire Kisses for free. So basically this Vampire Kiss would have a cost of 0 if this was in your opening hand, which seems like a pretty super powerful card. The only problem is the power and toughness on it compared to some other cards that most people are playing, like Vampire King. So I'm not sure if I would run a full playset of these. I would definitely run 2 or 3, but then again, the 3-point range used to be where we saw some of the cards in Blood that were very powerful, like your Inquisitor, which we didn't see very much in the last tournament. It used to cost 3 before there was a change in between Alpha and Beta. But you know, this card could fill a gap there. I'm not sure. The Vampiric Kiss is 3 and 1 blood threshold. It says deal 2 damage to target champion or troop, gain health equal to the damage dealt this way. A very solid card. Obviously, it's going to keep you ahead of the curve and also take out a threat. So very powerful if you get ahead with this. Over to you, Golden Saucer Guy.
I like it. I like it because there's Vampire Kiss has a gain or do damage, gain life, and we've seen some cards that play off that. And I like that dynamic. I like the, you know, we may be trading blows, but I do something to you, I gain some life back that tips it my direction. So I don't see this getting a ton of play, but I can see there being a few decks where this ends up being quite good.
Right. Obviously a #1 draft pick kind of a card, but I mean,
Sure.
we look at it from the constructed standpoint, like how much plays it's going to see over like Vampire King, you know. I think it fits the curve more nicely, so we may see less Vampire King just to play this to fit curve. Moving on, we've got Purge, which is a 7-cost diamond, 1 diamond threshold card. It's a basic action speed card that says choose a troop you control, void all troops that don't share a trait with the chosen troop. And a lot of troops have at least 2 traits. So you could get into a situation where you're voiding things that you really don't want to with this card. Also, it costs 7, which seems rather prohibitive, but it has the 1 diamond threshold. I'm not seeing this get a lot of play in constructed, maybe a 1 of or a 2 of. I could see maybe if you're going to play some sort of diamond wild deck where you're going to ramp up into it, and then like we talked about, both Golden Saucer Guy and I, you play your Wrathwood Master Moss or something like that. I guess it's kind of neat to do stuff in that situation. But again, in that situation with that type of deck, you're only drawing 1 card a turn, so I don't know. I don't really see it getting a lot of play. Golden Saucer Guy, what do you think about it?
I can see this getting some 1 ofs or 2 ofs, and here's the only reason why. You have decks like Humans that are on that edge of being good, but don't seem to have that way of clearing the board. I mean, you already have a way of clearing the board for 6 where you leave your highest cost troop behind, and that's really, you know, not really constructed worthy, but it's so close. And this one is also right on the edge too. It's like 7 cost is really high though, and that's the problem. The single diamond is great. Keeping your troops on board of a certain type. A lot of decks run specific types. I mean, tons of them. So that's really neat. But that 7 cost is just really
it's really prohibitive.
Kind of
I mean, it's obviously like you'd pick it up in draft because it does win you games outright. But I mean, it is using the new trait thing that we looked at last week. But yeah, they say that down here, this says that the stress test has been postponed because they found an issue that they need more time to resolve. So there's your answer if you were looking for one. But I think it's time for us to move on to the deck, Doctor. We got about 24 minutes to do this one this week, but luckily it's just a PVE Orc deck, so that should be not too bad for us. Let's see. Make sure to stick around after the show and be following so you can get your cool card. I guess I might give away a card, but we're definitely giving away a draft. We give away a draft every week. So let's see what kind of orcs we've got. This is going to be orc aggro, so we'll probably pick up a lot of things that are in the orc starter deck to start off with. So like, I know there's a Tatalka in there. I wonder if there's a way to just pull up and start with an orc starter deck. It's probably too late anyways. Apparently Azure Fate Sorceress has the word orc in it somewhere. I typed in orc. I'm not sure how Azure Fate Sorceress. Oh, Sorceress. She's a Sorceress.
That's actually pretty funny.
It's funny. You could go into Blood for this. We could go Ruby Blood maybe and play the Darkspire cards. So maybe we'll try to we'll take a look at that while we're looking at this. Gore Master Gore seems like a pretty good one, although that's a rare card. That I mean, it's not seeing a lot of constructive play. It looks like it's $1.39. I guess that's reasonable. About 1,600 gold. We were going to talk about the gold to cash ratio. I think it's just interesting to me that it takes me about an hour to grind 10,000 gold just because I have some of the Kickstarter perks. So for everybody else, it takes them if they clear the dungeon in an hour, which is about average for me. You're getting like close to 8,000 gold, which, you know, we figured out to be about $1 an hour is right. If you were to buy the promo cards and then sell them for like $2.50 or 250 silver platinum.
Right.
So that's kind of an interesting thing to talk about while we're putting together this deck, I guess.
Yeah. I guess it comes down to how much is your time worth.
Right.
That's the question. I mean, so it's. Do you think that are you going to be grinding already to get these items? If your answer is yes, then sure, it's absolutely worth it. If you don't want to spend any platinum at all, but you still want those cards, great. I mean, that's your only answer. For me, my time is worth more than $1 an hour. I mean, there's so many other things I'd rather be doing.
Right.
And it's not because it's not a slight against Hex in the slightest. It's just that's a lot of grinding and that's a lot of time when, you know, I can just go. I mean, you can go online right now, spam the chat, be like, you know, 1,200 platinum for 4 ofs or any 4 promo arts, and you get your money's worth. Even if you get ones you didn't necessarily need, you throw them in the auction house for $250, sell them, turn around and buy the ones you wanted. So that's basically what I did. I'm halfway through it now, and I've spent very little. I mean, it's like once a week I'll get 4 of the promos. So, and even then, you can work someone down to about $2.50 range, make it like, you know, $2 plat range. If you can get them to the 2 plat range, you're spending, you know, $8 for what's going to take you what, you know, 10 hours in the inside of the arena, maybe. I mean, I have a pretty quick deck, and I got it up to about $1 an hour.
Yeah, I mean, I figure that's about what's generalized, but I think it's just one of those things that's really cool because it opens things up for players like that are, you know, 12 and 13 years old that may not have a job yet, or they're in school, or maybe the college kid that's, you know, doesn't have a lot of money either. They can spend the time. You know, you either have time or you have money. You know,
Right.
like one of those two things. And so I think it's very nice that we have a game where it is that you can put in that kind of time. I'm just not sure if that's equitable. You know, I feel like maybe if it was half of that, that would be a little bit more fair for the people that are spending the time and not the money.
Yeah.
You know,
Right now, Buccaneer looks like it's averaging around $3.50 to the mid $4 platinum range. It's like $4.25-ish.
these are for the
That's not
alternate
the
arts, by
worst.
the way.
Yeah, it's gone up since Slavin last week. So burn started about $3.50 and ended around $4.
I mean, the rush is happening now because we did hear that the cards are getting ready to rotate out of being able to be purchased. So, I mean, that also adds to the value of the cards because people are getting ready for them to go away. So there is that to think about as well.
Yeah, and I have to admit, like, I don't really need all of them. I really love the Buccaneer, so I had to have 4 of those. I like Murder, so I'm going to work on getting some more Murders, but the other ones just couldn't really care. So
I think we may end up going mono Ruby. I mean, it's up to you guys. Hey, what's going on, Ragnarok? It's ultimately it's up to you guys what you guys want to go with this. If you want to go mono Ruby or Blood, let me know. I mean, we can go either direction. The Blood is nice because it has kind of like virtual card draw and deck thinning. The Ruby is nice because it's gonna give us consistency. So it just depends on which direction you want to go with this Orc deck. The big one I wanted to put, I'm trying to find her in here and I'm not seeing it. The one that makes all of your 1-cost troops +1/+1. And I'm not seeing her all of a sudden.
right.
I think she's Ruby. It's a female Orc. Can put Crackling Bolt in here. Could put a single Pennant Plan C in here maybe.
Oh, well, I'm a little bit delayed for you, so.
Rage Fire. You could put a single Ruby Aura. Just typical aggro things is all we're really looking at with this. That Ember Spire, which looks like an Orc, but it is not. I wish it was. Lightning Elemental is one that I would put in this deck even though it's mostly Orcs because it's just amazing, especially when you use your champion power and you get the equipment for it. It just... The Swift Striking right now, the AI still doesn't really get it. So they need to fix that, obviously. But while it's not being fixed, like the AI will do things where it'll be bad trades on Lightning Elemental with Swift Strike. It just happens. So, I mean, I guess you might as well take advantage of it. Ruby Pyromancers, maybe. We might run that in here. Seems decent. Around. We got the burns, of course. Burn is great with the equipment because it's going to give you the 3-point burn for 1, so 3 points, pretty awesome. It can finish out the game. I always forget. I always try to burn something. I'm like, I think it's going to do 2 damage, then it does 3, and I'm like, oh yeah.
Right.
I always end up doing that when I'm playing in the arena. It always surprises me. I'm like, oh, 3 damage? No way.
Yep. So if anybody's watching live, I think I'm going to jump into a draft after this is over. I'm debating on it, so if any of you guys are drafting, let me know.
Oh, there's that new Fellroot Acorn that's coming in set 3. Oh,
I'm
boy.
excited for that.
That's going to be exciting to see all those new shard types that can come into play unexhausted. Let's see. +1.
Yeah, I can't wait to see the rest of those. That's just one of those cards that's got me just so pumped. I mean, it is rare, just throwing that out there for people.
Yeah, it's like the first rare resource we've seen, but I guess that makes sense because it does come into play unexhausted and it is dual. And we do have legendaries, so it kind of helps out with that. I'm not a big fan of rare resources because that becomes a big hindrance to newer players to try to get and play competitively. But I understand that, you know, they're not, you know, they got to make money too. They got mouths to feed just like I do. So
right.
I mean, at least with it being a rarity, it's a lot easier to build your play set of those or trade when you have the one deck you're trying to build.
It said it's hard to hear me. I wish it would have said something earlier. We would have tuned me up.
We did test it before the thing. I'm really sorry, Theraval. Yeah, Crackling Void is rare, but it's used in it's I wouldn't say it's as useful as a dual resource. I mean, let's just be honest.
Right.
How many decks that have top 8'd use Crackling Vortex? I mean, that's how I judge it. That's how, if I'm looking at a card, that's how I'm going to judge it. What is this card? I always forget.
Yeah, I mean, if you do a lot of stuff that works off those charges, it's great, but we haven't seen decks that rely on it. I mean, Stormcloud is probably the best use for it, and I like Vortex a lot, but I'd rather just run Crackling Bolts just to get that extra charge out of it.
It's a card you can really only run in like a mono shard deck, you know.
Right.
We could run Arena Regular in here. I'm not sure why he didn't show up in the Orcs. Vortex. Fierce Warlord, there she is. This is the one. I really kind of want to build. I've done this before. I've built the deck around her. We run like a 21 shard deck, and it's basically like we top out at 4, like a 104, and then like a bunch of 3 cost. And I think that'll run really well. So it looks like out of the cards we've chosen that are Orcs, we've got a lot more Ruby cards than Blood cards. So I think we just kind of want to go mono Ruby, especially because this is the Orc starter deck. If you had that, you have most of this anyways. So I think we'll just go that direction, and that'll keep things nice and simple for tonight. Unless anyone has objections.
I feel either, well, Gore Storm before it fell out of favor did. I mean, I was still almost running Gore Storm. I mean, I was running 4 Clouds, so it was around the edge there, but I liked Gore Storm quite a bit. I was a fan.
Obviously, you were a fan. Yeah, given that you...
Yeah, it's actually the fault of Armies of Mordor. He was like, "Oh no, run this deck," and it was Gore Storm, but we made some changes over the next event, and the next time I ran it, we made changes coming to this event. So by the time we're done, we certainly had a deck that he might not have approved of, but we did fairly well. So
again, it's good to have groups of people you can bounce your ideas off of. That's just an example of that, and obviously we've seen how well on a good day that you can do.
Yeah, and to be honest, I mean, you and Armies and other people have talked me out of using other decks, so I only did this well because I got advice. So, you know, play with people, play as much as you can, read your cards. So
we have to make a decision on how much removal we need for this arena deck.
I don't think you need a ton. I mean,
we definitely don't need 12. We need like maybe 8 or 7. You know, so
7's a good number for 3. That's 3 and 4, or you know, you're looking at like 4 Rage Fires, 3 Crackling Bolts.
It really feels like ever since Crackling Bolt has come out, that Rage Fire is just not as useful. You know, it's just like it's nice maybe in the control deck or in a deck where you're just trying to like kill everything, and then the late game you can just burn face with it. Right. But any other deck, I draw Rage Fires and I don't want to do 2 damage. I don't want to do 2 damage now. I want to do like 3 or 4 damage now. I don't feel like waiting to get another one. I need that 3 right now. Right. And that's why Crackling Bolt's kind of higher on my list. Yeah. Plus, Crackling Bolt's going to help you get the Poca power off, which is just amazing here. Let's see. If we're going to play this guy, we'll probably only play like one of them. I guess the nice thing with Mentor the Flames, though, is if you do have the equipment for burn, maybe that makes you want to play more Mentor the Flames, because now all your burns do 3 damage. I mean, that's kind of neat, you know?
Right.
Right now we've got 20 shards in here, and we need to get rid of about 9 cards. So with the Gem Crazed Berserker, I think this is actually pretty good for the arena runs, because what you do is you gem him. I wouldn't gem him haste, and the reason why is because you need something that's going to be able to break through lines when it is that they do have blockers up. I would gem him with the one where they can't block him unless they're Ruby troops, which is going to or artifacts. So there are some battles where this isn't going to help, but for the most part, this is going to be what you're going to want on him. Troops that can't be blocked by, except for by artifact troops and or troops that share a shard with it. That's what I would go with on this guy. But yeah, I wouldn't fault you for going haste.
Isn't a bad thing. You're going to get a kill usually, so
or speed.
Doesn't even matter.
Haste, speed, whatever. The thing that makes it so he can attack right away. The Ruby Aura is another one I think is good, because again the computer's just so bad at judging Swift Strike. You could keep this in there, sure. The Fierce Warlord, we need to make sure we have enough 1-drops to make it worth it though, so that makes us want to use like Gem Crazed Berserker and some of these other things less. We've also got Gore Master. I think Gore Master wants more Crackling Bolt, so that kind of makes me want to use less of those, because I feel like we're trying to play a much lower curve, faster deck, so maybe I'll do that for the Ruby Aura. It's basically like either run 3 Crackling Bolt or 1 Ruby Aura, because again that's a trick. How many tricks am I going to run in this deck? Like Ruby Aura needs for me to have a troop in play, and then Crackling Bolt's nice because it doesn't, but yeah. There's that Taskmaster, maybe, and of course we put the Ruby Pyromancer in here. If we're running a bunch of 1-drops, we probably don't want this. We probably want to actually find some more 1-drops. So we may actually go back to the other deck manager and actually pull like what are they called? The ones that give you a charge when they come into play. They are artifacts. They cost 1. Next I can go troops. Just delete this Ruby. Cost. And it'll be 1. I always forget the name of it. Charge bot. You could run charge bots in here for more 1-drops for your Fierce Warlord, because it says when you enter play, troops you control with cost 1 or less get +1/+1. So that's kind of neat.
Hey, what's going on, Nero?
We got Sith Raid in here. Oh, he's saying Sith Raid. I'm not sure what he's saying Sith Raid for.
Sounds like our channel's about to get raided.
It's about to get raided. Okay, I'm okay with that. We do have the giveaway coming up here after the show in about 9 minutes, so that's nice. Looks like this is mostly doing what I wanted to do. I think we need to get more shards in here. It feels like we need either 21 or 22 shards, the way the curve is looking. We've only got the 1 Tatalka as our 5-drop. You wouldn't have to play this, but if you have the Orc starter deck, you might as well. You know, it's just nice to have. That's kind of like a nice late game card that can kill things. You got the Zoltog in here, again, a card you don't necessarily need to have or run for this deck. But again, I'm having it in here because it is a nicety to have at the top of your range on that 4-drop. We've got 2 Mentor of Flames, which actually we got 1, and then we got Gore Feast are your 4-drops. So it just depends really on what you're trying to do. 3-drops, we got a bunch of Gem Crazed Berserker. I guess we could take those down by 2 to kind of like, yeah, kind of like even out that a bit more. We need to get rid of 4 more cards. Really appreciate everyone for stopping by here. Make sure if you missed the beginning of the show, which a lot of you did, that you stop by for syndication. I guess we can... I'm not sure if I want to get... Lightning Elemental is just so good. I like having him in here. Probably the Arena Regular is what we need to get rid of. This guy is for more of a charge deck. So probably if you want to go in a different direction with your Orcs, you could play a higher curve, which means more resources. Play Arena Regular, play a playset of Crackling Bolt, and play... what's his name? The guy that doubles his power. The guy we just got rid of. I forgot what his name is. But basically there's the guy, the 3-cost guy that doubles his power. I would play him. So let's see. So that's about 60 cards, and our curve is like basically down, going straight down. We can actually go with 1 shard in our opening hand, which is pretty neat with this PVE deck. The equipment that I would choose for this deck is if you have it, I would get the Lightning Elemental equipment that gives them +1/+0 when you use your charge power. That looks like that's going to be on your weapon slot. And when you deal damage, gain 2 charges if you've got that one maybe. The head slot, so you got a weapon slot, head slot there used up. You definitely want the burn one, which is all your burns have deal 3 damage. That one's gloves. So we definitely want that. And then what else? I'm not sure what other equipment we've even got here that's available. I don't think I want that. Veteran Gladiator doesn't have anything. I'm just kind of looking for some more equipment just to look through before we close this out. Anything to add, Golden Saucer Guy, or any directions you would have done? Anything you would have done differently? Or?
I mean, this is somewhat close to a deck I'm already running to just farm gold, so...
This one's pretty good. This trinket makes me almost want to run more Furious Taskmaster because, you know, Rage 1 seems pretty good. Oh, Gore Master. Yeah. Gore Master's the guy. If you're going to run more charge-based, and with the Lightning Elemental, you definitely could run a total charge-based Orc deck. I might just build that just so you can see it, especially with like the charge bot. We probably run the other charge guy, the guy that was in the winner's deck. You'd probably run the reactor bot also in that charge deck, in that Orc charge deck. It would be a very much different deck though. It'd be more of a turn 2, 3, 4 deck than this is more of like a 1, 2, 3 kind of a deck.
Right.
We already talked about that. This guy doesn't have equipment, so yeah, you guys heard what equipment I would put on here. Definitely run Poca. You know, you're just trying to like get that damage in as fast as possible, and you know, if you gas out, then you lose, type of thing. And I actually had a game yesterday. I like never lose to the what is it, the Swamp Thing champion, where he's Sapphire and Wild, and he draws 5 cards. That's his power. Like, he was down to his last card, and he had played so many 5/5s, or so many like 10/10 troops. It was ridiculous. and he was down to his last card, and I couldn't hold on to make him draw out because the computer will just keep drawing cards. But yeah. So closing out the episode tonight. Thanks for everyone stopping by. I'll try to maybe do some quick streaming depending on the wife. We'll see what she says. But tonight on Deck Build the Squire, for all of you people that are showing up late, we talked about the 5 Shards Cup tournament and what we thought about some of the decks that were in there and how lucky Golden Saucer Guy was to make it in there, how great of a day he had and how he felt about that. We talked about some of the news and how there's going to be no server test basically tomorrow. There's no tournament stress test tomorrow. And then we talked about some of the other news on, like, if you want to become a game developer and some of the cards that came out that are in set 3. Again, hopefully I need to contact Hex so that maybe they can give me my promo, and I might be debuting that pretty soon on the show. And then we finished it up with this wonderful deck doctor where you've got the PVE Orcs, and I forget exactly who asked me to do this, but again, when you do submit a deck to me and I put it on the show, I do reward that person, usually with like a free draft or something. So make sure to get those submissions in this week on the YouTube video. And again, I also announced that I will be going to Gen Con this year, so I hope to see you guys out there. If you come out there, say hello to me, and I might just come up with some sort of a prize thing when you come and say hello and come and see me at Gen Con this year. Maybe, you know, have a pint or whatever. So, anything you want to add on, throw on there, Golden Saucer Guy?
No, I won't be there, but please party in spirit with me. It'll be cool.
Maybe we should do a Kickstarter. Get Golden Saucer Guy to Gen Con Kickstarter.
Right. Yeah, I'll be at another event though in the Pittsburgh area called Replay FX, which is hosting the World Pinball Championship. They're gonna have like 500 pinball machines.
What date's that gonna be on?
Machines. Tons of video games, $110,000 in prizes, so I'll have a good time. I just won't be at Gen Con.
Yeah. Well, what date's that going to be on? Is the date set for that?
Yeah, it's against Gen Con, same weekend.
Oh, okay. So there you go. So you can either go to Gen Con and see me, or you can go and play some pinball and see Golden Saucer Guy, and maybe he'll have something to give you or something. I don't know.
Oh, people! If someone actually from this thing goes to Replay FX, I will find something to give you, and it'll be awesome.
Alright, so until next time, this is Aaron Squire signing off, saying God bless your families. Try not to race too much out there.